Alright, epistemological approaches to metaethics. Let's talk about naturalism. This assumes that all ethical knowledge is empirical, and it models after the natural sciences and the pure mathematics for paradigms. Remember that? Paradigms. You've seen that term already, okay? For those holistic kind of concepts. Okay, ethical concepts concern natural phenomena. Alright? This is one epistemological approach. Now see, all these words are starting to tie together. We've talked about epistemology, you've learned metaethics, and you've learned the word paradigms in our last chapter. So now we're starting to thread some of these terms together. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just want you to know a basic overview of these. Okay, rationalism, you've already seen that in epistemology, in study of knowledge, theories of knowledge. But there's also a rationalist approach to metaethics. And this assumes that all ethical knowledge is a priori. Remember that? That was one of the first terms that you learned. What's a priori mean? It's one of your first vocabulary words in our class.
Comes before.
Yeah, what comes before, prior to. Yeah. So you already know innate ideas, things like that, right? Okay, this is modeled on the paradigm of pure mathematics. It understands morality as something separate from, but applicable to, natural phenomena. Okay, morality structure can be grasped through reason without sensory input. So you don't need any outside data to know right and wrong concept, is what this is saying. This is what the rationalist says. It's built in. You don't have to have the data from outside, the empirical stuff, to have that basic sense of what's right and what's wrong. Okay. Alright. Non-cognitivism. This denies that ethics is a genuine branch of knowledge. Now that's important because, to underline, I would underline that word knowledge, because remember we talked about knowledge versus true opinion and things like that. You can have an opinion, but it's not based on really connecting, really knowing something. It ends up being true. Okay, true opinion. You can believe something and it happened to be true, but you don't know it. All right, California, never been there, never seen it. They could be hoaxing me, on the internet and TV, saying there's this place called California. I've never been there. I've been to Oregon. I've lived in Washington. I never made it to this place they call California. So do I know there's a California? Or is it, I suppose it depends on if you're, back to the innate ideas thing. But, empirically speaking, I certainly do not know there's a California. I've never flown over it. So, I have not experienced California. But it's true opinion. Yes, of course, there's California, and, Arnold Schwarzenegger's the governor out there, and, the governor, all that, So, yes, it's a fact, and I happen to believe that fact. That's true opinion. That's not knowing. All right. Okay. Non-cognitivism rejects modeling on math or science. An extreme form argues that there are no genuine ethical concepts, such as right, wrong, good, evil. These are all meaningless terms. The non-cognitivism, you can kind of see where the term comes in here. Can't know it. Can't know it for sure because it's not a real tangible thing to know. It's kind of intertwined a little bit with the relativist perspective, but it's saying you can't know it. You can believe it and act on it and all this, but you can't know it. All right, that's what it's saying. Okay. All right. Metaphysical approaches to metaethics. First one we're talking about is this is centered on the question of objectivity of ethical predicates. We talked about epistemological stuff. Now we're switching over to the what exists stuff. Right? We're switching switching gears here. Okay, this is centered on the question of objectivity of ethical predicates. That is, whether or not they are real properties or only apparent invented properties ascribed by the perceiver. For some of you, you may wrestle with this a little bit, because now we're going to start talking about right and wrong being something that exists outside of yourself. Okay, is that possible? Okay, is that possibly how this works?
Like laws in the universe?
Yeah, that's a good example. Laws in the universe that was wrong because the universe just says that's just wrong. You know, so that's a good example. Okay, moral realism proposes that ethical properties exist in the external world, independent of their being perceived. Ethical properties exist in the external world, independent of their being perceived. Okay. Plato is an example here. Ethical properties are purely intellectual. Okay, for Aristotle, ethical properties are reducible by empirical properties. So, back to that rational empirical debate, you know, and we see the seeds of it with Plato and Aristotle. All right, ethical properties, are they just intellectual, or are they out here? Is there right and wrong, like he said, in the universe? It's a good example. Okay, moral subjectivism denies that ethical properties exist outside of human perception. Okay, moral subjectivism denies that ethical properties exist outside of human perception. Okay, the person ascribes feelings, impulses, or state of mind to an ethical property. Okay, and of course this gives way to relativism as well. All right. So it's just that term subjective, moral subjectivism should clue you in there. It's subjective. So you have feelings, and we had that discussion in class. Sometimes people don't do things because they're afraid of consequences, so on and so forth. Have you ever done something that you felt bad for, and yet there weren't really any consequences other than you felt bad, like you did somebody wrong, or, you know, sometimes you can feel guilty and it's a false guilt, right? You find out, oh, I didn't do that after all. You feel bad because you thought you forgot something. Oh, no, you know, I didn't lock the door and I'm on vacation, and, you know, somebody's going to break into my house, and oh, yeah, I did lock it after all. So sometimes we can have those kind of false registers like that. But the idea has to do with you're ascribing a feeling to an ethical property. Okay? Ascribing a feeling to it, or an impulse or state of mind. Same difference.